Hi! Hello everyone! Welcome back to BION, the channel where we share knowledge about holistic self-development through great books. Have you ever wondered why you tend to be haunted by a single criticism, reproach, or harsh judgment, while compliments and praise never seem to linger for long? Even though we are the most advanced species on the planet, our instincts cling to fear. We're naturally drawn to focus on the negative, on sadness and pain, while joy often slips away from us very quickly. We live in the wealthiest era in human history, yet most people still cannot find happiness. For hundreds of millions of years, the human brain has evolved to prioritize detecting danger. This negativity bias causes painful memories, failures, or even physical losses to stick tightly to our neurons, bizarrely triggering anxiety and anger. This mechanism once helped our ancestors survive predators, but today, it traps us in a cycle of stress and sorrow. Dr. Rick Hansen, a renowned American neuropsychologist and one of the world's leading experts in the field of intentional neuroplasticity, combined neuroscience, positive psychology, and evolutionary biology to create a book I am very excited to share with you today. Asterisk. Hardwiring. Happiness. Asterisk. Through this book, he reveals a hopeful truth. You can build a peaceful, resilient, and deeply contented mind living a truly happy life. By reprogramming your brain, you may have already heard of different methods to cultivate happiness through philosophy, Buddhism, or BION channels. Like better version, but today, through the lens of brain science, I hope to share with you a new pathway, one that can help you overcome worry, stress, and truly experience a life filled with genuine joy. So now, let's listen together. Why does the brain need to be reprogrammed? If you've ever thought, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, then you've touched upon a profound truth about human resilience. But have you ever wondered what that strength truly is and how we can cultivate it? Living in this world, we must face countless challenges, both from external pressures and our own internal struggles. Scientists suggest that whether a person can overcome these difficulties depends on three key factors. First is the level of difficulty of the challenge itself. Second is our degree of vulnerability, meaning how emotionally sensitive or fragile we are at that moment. And third, our coping capacity, whether we possess enough inner strength to face the situation head-on. Among these three, it is the third factor, our inner strength, that holds the most significance and is most within our control. According to Dr. Rick Hansen, a renowned neuropsychologist, about 1/3 of our inner strength comes from our genetically inherent qualities passed down from our parents. However, the remaining 2/3 are built and fortified through our daily practices and accumulated experiences. If you don't know how to consciously cultivate this inner power, you might find yourself easily swept away by life's currents, feeling helpless and surrendering to fate. On the contrary, if you understand how to train your inner strength, you can navigate life's storms with a sense of happiness and peace. So, how exactly do we train this crucial resilience? From the perspective of neuroscience, Dr. Hansen points to a powerful method, reprogramming the brain through neuroplasticity. The term neuroplasticity might sound complex, but it simply refers to the brain's remarkable ability to adapt, change, and reorganize itself throughout our lives. Our brains contain billions of neurons connected in vast, intricate networks. These neural pathways shape how we think, feel, and react to everything that happens to us. For instance, a student might immediately feel a surge of anxiety upon hearing the word exam. This isn't a random reaction. It happens because their neural circuits have been wired over time to trigger a stress response in such situations. The training we need, therefore, is to intentionally reshape how these circuits fire and respond. Research consistently shows that neuroplasticity is driven by experience. In other words, what you consistently focus your attention on quite literally shapes the physical structure of your brain. Everyone tends to pay attention to different things based on their personal interests, values, and past experiences. Someone intensely focused on making money will naturally be drawn to profitable business models and investment opportunities. A person who enjoys gossip will find their attention irresistibly pulled toward rumors and social drama, as their brain has been wired to track these social stimuli. Similarly, someone obsessed with health and longevity may constantly notice minor bodily discomforts and overreact to the slightest sign of potential illness. The more your neural circuits are drawn to something, the more you will experience it in your daily life. This phenomenon follows a principle known as survival of the busiest. The neural pathways that are used most frequently grow stronger, more efficient, and more stable. Consequently, the more you focus on something, whether it is positive or negative, the more that pattern of thinking becomes reinforced and automatic. However, in reality, for most of us, negative experiences tend to dominate this neural growth. This isn't a personal failing. It's due to a fundamental protective mechanism in the brain known as the negativity bias, or the principle that bad is stronger than good. The human brain is fundamentally designed for survival. It prioritizes potential threats, heightens our vigilance, and triggers swift, powerful responses to perceived danger. Imagine you are walking alone down a dark, unfamiliar alley and you hear footsteps behind you. Your brain immediately activates its internal alarm system, flooding your body with stress hormones and putting you in a defensive, hyperaware state. But this same life-saving mechanism also causes the amygdala, the brain's anxiety and fear center, to be easily overactivated in everyday situations. Let's say that, in a single day, 20 different things happen to you. 19 of them are perfectly fine, even pleasant, but one is decidedly unpleasant. A rude comment, a minor mistake, or a moment of frustration. By the time you're lying in bed at night, what do you find yourself replaying in your mind? For most people, it's that single negative event. This is how the brain works. By default, it always prioritizes and holds onto the negative. Not only is the brain biased toward bad news, but the very structure of our memory system reinforces this negativity. The brain primarily stores information in two forms: explicit memory and implicit memory. Explicit memory consists of the facts and events you can consciously recall, like reciting a poem you learned, describing your last vacation, or remembering an important date. Implicit memory, on the other hand, is formed unconsciously from our experiences. It leaves behind emotional imprints, feelings, moods, and bodily sensations that are often much harder to notice or articulate. Implicit memory tends to lean heavily toward the negative. Sensations of pain, fear, loss, and disappointment are stored deeply as part of that protective mechanism, designed to help us avoid similar threats in the future. The combination of our inherent negativity bias and the repetitive nature of worry makes our implicit memory a powerful, often unseen, force shaping our lives. Positive experiences, meanwhile, tend to fade quickly. Most moments of joy, contentment, and connection are fleeting, passive, and weakly encoded in our memory. For instance, when you receive a genuine compliment, the positive feeling it generates may only exist in your short-term memory. For that feeling to become a lasting part of your long-term memory, it would require repeated reinforcement, but it is unlikely someone will praise you over and over for the same thing. As a result, happy moments often slip away like sand through our fingers, while the weight of sadness, anger, or fear sinks deep inside us. This is precisely why bad news, scandals, and negative headlines spread so much faster and capture far more attention than positive stories. It's also why many people, despite having countless happy moments in their lives, tend to take them for granted and focus on what's wrong. The ultimate consequence of this programming, we end up unhappy. We live in a state of prolonged anxiety, feeling constantly unsettled and dissatisfied. In today's world, with the relentless rise of mass media, television, the internet, and smartphones, our brains are bombarded with an endless stream of information for nearly 20 hours a day. We see who earned how much money, who is more talented, whose child got into the best school, who is wearing the nicest clothes, and on and on. All of this constant comparison and information overload actively shapes our neural circuits, reinforcing feelings of inadequacy and stress. That is why it has become so rare to find someone, even a person with a high income or a salary in the hundreds of millions, who feels truly and consistently happy. Each day, these external pressures pile up, increasing the level of stress hormones circulating in our bodies. This chronic stress is why so many people today struggle with anxiety disorders, depression, bipolar disorder, phobias, and a host of other mental and emotional challenges. To understand how to counter this, scientists point out that the human brain consists of three main operating systems, layered on top of one another through evolution. At the core is the reptilian brain, which governs our most basic survival functions, like breathing, heart rate, and instinct. Surrounding that is the mammalian brain, which processes emotions, bonding, and social behavior. Finally, on the outside is the primate brain, or neo, which handles complex, logical thinking, planning, and self-awareness. These three systems work together to meet three core human needs: the need for safety, the need for satisfaction, and the need for social connection. Based on how these needs are being met, the brain operates in one of two fundamental modes: the green state, which is an adaptive, responsive mode, and the red state, which is a reactive, defensive mode. When you are facing difficulties, if your brain's circuits are trained to remain adaptive, you stay in the green state. In T state, all three of your brain systems work in harmony. You feel fundamentally safe, content, and connected to others, no matter what challenges arise. For example, imagine this scenario. While riding your bike to work, someone on a scooter cuts you off abruptly. Instead of getting angry, you simply smile and think, they must be in a real hurry. A little later, at your office, you accidentally spill some water on your desk. You calmly clean it up, thinking, good thing it wasn't my coffee. Later that day, your boss criticizes a report you submitted. You listen carefully, take notes, and think, this feedback is a great opportunity for me to improve. This is the brain operating in the green state, calm, resilient, and adaptive. But now imagine that same day beginning with anger. You chase after the reckless driver, yelling insults. This initial negativity primes your brain for more. So, when the water spills, you become even more irritated, muttering about your bad luck. And when your boss offers criticism, you internalize it as a personal attack, thinking, what a terrible day. Nothing is going right. That frustration then follows you home, causing you to snap at your loved ones or retreat into self-blame. This is the red state of destructive chain reaction of negativity. In T state, even neutral comments from others can provoke anger, and your relationships can deteriorate because your brain is stuck in a reactive, defensive loop. By contrast, when your brain consistently operates from the green state, life feels more peaceful, meaningful, and fulfilling. Interestingly, this state also has profound physiological benefits. Being in the green state triggers the release of endorphins and nitric oxide natural compounds that reduce pain, fight inflammation, and boost the immune system. Medical studies have shown that maintaining this state of calm responsiveness improves overall well-being, lowers the risk of chronic disease, and can even contribute to a longer lifespan. The red state, on the other hand, exaggerates negative responses, amplifies stress, and wears down the body over time. That's why training your brain's neuroplasticity to keep it adaptive, 2. Consciously switch on the green light is the key to living a balanced, healthy, and happy life. It is the very essence of what it means to become stronger from our struggles. So, how exactly can we train our neural circuits to achieve this? How can we reprogram our brains to live a life of resilience and joy? The world doesn't belong to the wealthy, nor to those who have time, but to those who pay attention. We've explored how training our focus can reshape the brain for happiness. But what happens when our plans go awry, when unexpected risks threaten to derail us? The answer lies not in avoiding risk, but in mastering the art of risking within caution. This method can be summarized with 4 words. The first is the letter R, meaning recognize. Next is assess, which means to evaluate. Stabilize, meaning to create balance. And finally, execute. Connect. The first thing we need is the letter R, recognize, meaning to recognize potential risks. So how do we recognize risks? Experts in risk management have shown that we should start with awareness, or to make it easier to apply, let's call it paying a little more mindfulness to our surroundings and our inner state. There is a saying, it's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. A person who is aware of their own strengths, weaknesses, and the environment they operate in will navigate the world more effectively. Good decisions and prudent actions all require you to notice and identify potential pitfalls. For instance, the excitement of a new business idea. Does it usually blind you to the challenges? But now you pay attention and discovered that in that initial burst of enthusiasm lies a potential for overconfidence. You feel a sense of caution. You slow down and you remember to do your due diligence. That is paying attention. Paying attention allows you to see the potential downsides of everything, to discover and anticipate challenges from what seems straightforward. A booming market looks enticing. A job offer with a high salary seems wonderful. The promise of quick returns, a new partnership, a sudden opportunity to move abroad, or even the plan for a weekend hike. All these seemingly simple, positive things suddenly reveal their hidden complexities. That is how the process of awareness begins to reestablish your brain's ability to see the full picture. However, 1.2 remember, when we identify potential risks, let them be data points, not sources of fear. Don't try to eliminate all uncertainty or force yourself to have a perfect, risk-free plan. What makes you effective usually comes from a sense of preparedness, but paralysis arises when you turn caution into avoidance. For example, you see an opportunity to invest in a promising startup, and you like the idea. But if you insist on having a guarantee of success before you act, then progress is lost. This doesn't mean you should abandon all caution, but rather a reminder. Let things unfold with careful consideration, as a balanced choice between potential reward and acceptable risk. Prudence is when you keep a clear-eyed view of the opportunity, when the potential upside aligns with your risk tolerance. You proceed with a calm mind, free of naive optimism or crippling fear. Besides paying attention to external risks, you can also proactively understand your internal ones. So, how can we build self-awareness? Do we need to spend years in psychoanalysis to understand our biases? Actually, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Research shows that one of the simplest, yet most effective ways is to practice reflective journaling. Start with small, ordinary decisions in daily life. Have you ever actively questioned your own motives, like the decision to take on a new project at work? You can take a moment to ask why you're doing it. Is it for growth, or to please your boss? Thanks to this honesty, you can work, connect, and create more authentically. Many people think, I have good instincts. What's there to question? That very thought cuts off the brain's pathways for critical self-assessment. If you see every impulse as pure intuition, you will struggle to make truly sound decisions. You can also reframe past mistakes, discovering the cognitive biases that led you astray. In addition, act with intention every day. Think before you speak in a heated meeting. Pause before making an impulse purchase. Consider the long-term impact of a small daily habit. These small acts of self-regulation build a stronger internal compass. The ancients said, "Know thyself. If you keep that habit, your judgment will grow sharper and clearer." Finally, see challenges as data. If you view life as a series of experiments, you'll find every outcome valuable. Every failure is a chance to learn, making your mind more agile and your strategy more robust. This is how we learn the first letter, recognize, which helps the brain truly see and understand the risks we face. Then comes assess, making your understanding of those risks more concrete. For example, you recognize that a new career path is risky, but if that only remains a vague feeling, you're still at step one. Those feelings stay in your short-term emotional brain and lead to anxiety. So first, quantify the risk. How much? Define the potential loss in terms of time, money, or reputation. If the risk is starting a business, you can calculate the initial investment, estimate the monthly burn rate, and set a kill switch, a point at which you will stop if it is not working. The problem is we avoid the hard numbers. Sometimes we just go with a gut feeling, or worse, rely on vague optimism without truly doing the math. That's why many ventures fail unnecessarily. After quantifying the risk, we need to increase the quality of our information, making our assessment more complete, more objective. This is the capacity to look deeply in due diligence. For example, when considering a partnership, look deeply. You'll see their track record, their reputation in the industry, their work ethic, their communication style. You'll also see yourself, the one who brings specific skills and resources to the table, and who needs a reliable counterpart to succeed. The partnership has the potential to create synergy, giving you the capacity to achieve more together. In that potential partnership lies the power of collaboration, and you are one part of that equation. Naturally, a realistic assessment of fit, alignment, and trustworthiness arises, not because you have a perfect crystal ball, but because you recognize the knowable facts that are already present. This is how you program your brain to enhance the quality of your assessment. Next, add diversity to your inputs. Seek out different perspectives. Play devil's advocate. Talk to mentors, critics, and customers to deepen your understanding. For example, each time I consider a major decision, I seek out at least 3 dissenting opinions. I often ask someone to argue against my idea. Don't feel defensive. Listen openly. Understand their reasoning, and see the flaws in your logic they reveal. Challenge your own assumptions. Feel the discomfort of being wrong. Feel your ego shrink in the face of a better argument. Listen to the data, and let gratitude for the honest feedback rise within you. That clarity and objectivity will return to your mind and your strategy. Finally, simulate the future. Stay curious. Run thought experiments. Create best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios. These all help the prefrontal cortex engage and create a more robust plan. Then we move to step 3. Stabilize. If step 1, recognize, is like seeing a storm on the horizon, and step 2, assess, is tracking its path and intensity. Step 3, stabilize, means preparing your ship, securing the hatches, and making sure you can weather the turbulence. What do we stabilize? Our finances, our emotions, and our support systems to mitigate the impact of the risk. Simply put, if you feel prepared, grounded, and supported, then stabilization is happening. A calculated risk dose and T-stop at assessment. It requires building a foundation that allows you to absorb a potential blow and remain standing. The book tells a story. An entrepreneur wanted to leave her stable job to start a company. The risk was enormous. She didn't just quit. First, she spent a year saving an emergency fund, a financial buffer. She found a co-founder who complemented her skills, an emotional and operational support system. She also secured a small, part-time consulting gig, a safety net to provide a trickle of income. This was stabilization, building pillars of support so that the leap felt less like a jump off a cliff and more like a step across a well-built bridge. How do you know you've truly stabilized? By observing yourself with honesty. Your resources are finite. You become what you prepare for. If you stabilize your finances, ask yourself, do you have enough runway to survive a setback? If you stabilize your emotions, are you mentally ready for the stress and uncertainty? The sign of deep stabilization is a subtle but clear inner calm. The more stable your foundation, the more resilient you become. Negative outcomes will find it harder to crush you, because your underlying structure is strong enough to carry you through the storm. The last step in risking within caution is execute taking action. This is the deepest commitment. When you use your preparation to move forward and engage with the risk you've chosen. As humans, we all face moments of decision. They may be big or they may be small, but whether we act or hesitate, a choice is made, like a seed planted in the garden of our future. The key isn't about waiting for that perfect moment or hoping. All your fears just disappear. That only triggers your brain's freeze response. It's really about taking that first step. This approach doesn't expect you to be fearless. It encourages you to act with courage, equipped with awareness and preparation. Take, for instance, someone who's terrified of public speaking. Instead of letting that fear take control, they connected it with a sense of readiness. Each practice session was a chance to build their competence and gain a little more control. So, when the time finally came to step on stage, sure, the fear was still there, but it didn't hold the same power anymore. It was balanced out by the confidence that came from all that hard work. This is how our brains learn to respond in a more empowered way. But remember, this process demands action. You can only conquer your fear of risk by embracing it and taking those risks. But here's the thing. You need to be prepared enough so that your action feels like a step forward, not just a leap into the unknown. If you're not ready, you'll just end up confirming those fears you've been trying to avoid. So, if your preparation feels a bit shaky, don't hesitate to revisit those earlier steps and build a stronger foundation. Now, you've got all 4 steps in your toolkit for navigating risks with caution. Ever wondered how to chase your goals without being reckless? Well, it's not about dodging risks. It's all about your process and how you prep for it every day. By paying attention to potential pitfalls and actively creating a solid base through financial planning, emotional regulation, and strategic thinking, you're reshaping your ability to take action. And guess what? That's how you'll transform the way you navigate through life.